tough bad. I didn't play no game.
Earlier this year, Rickey Smiley and his family got hit by one of the worst tragedies that could ever happen to anyone.
I don't know why. I don't know how.
And he's finally speaking out about what happened. It's truly devastating and hard to hear. A few months ago, Rickey announced the passing of his eldest son, Brandon. He did this through an Instagram post. At first, he didn't really go into a lot of detail about what happened to Brandon, which was very understandable since he was still in shock and just trying to process everything. But still, he did give us some detail about what happened. And he said that he was okay and that we should pray for Brandon's mother, Brenda. Sadly, this wasn't the first time something like this happened to Rickey's family. According to him, his grandfather had to go through the same thing when his father passed away, and Rickey couldn't believe that he was suddenly experiencing it too. After Rickey announced Brandon's passing, he took some time off to process everything and grieve his son, but eventually he decided to let everyone know what really happened to Brandon. While talking about the events that happened on the day Brandon passed away, Rickey talked about how he got the call. You know, the dreaded call that no one ever wants to get about people that are close to them, especially if that person is your child. According to Rickey, he was in his Dallas apartment getting ready to watch the playoffs when Brandon's girlfriend called him. The information that Rickey received from Brandon's girlfriend was that Brandon had OD'd, and as you can expect, he didn't waste any time. He immediately hopped on the next flight to see Brandon. It wasn't until he got a second call that reality actually dawned on him, and he realized that Brandon was really gone. The second call came from Rickey's daughter, Taylor. In an interview, Rickey explained that his family had not received any toxicology reports concerning Brandon's passing, but they suspect that he actually passed away because of his substance use. This is what Brandon's girlfriend had told them, and it wasn't exactly hard for them to believe this because they all knew that Brandon had been struggling with his substance use for a really long time. According to Rickey, he and Brandon's mother, Brenda, made tons of attempts to get Brandon the help he needed by sending him to rehab, and at one point they thought that their efforts were working. Brandon was doing better. He even joined a church and got baptized again, but it turns out that he actually wasn't getting any better because 1 month after this, he passed away. Since Brandon's passing, Rickey has been trying his best to not let the grief get to him. Instead, he's channeled it into a new goal for himself, and that goal is to speak openly about the issues concerning substance misuse in the United States. The rate of people passing away from substance misuse in the US is at an all-time high, and sadly, this figure is expected to keep rising, especially among younger people just like Brandon. According to Rickey, people assume that if kids are in a good school district or a gated community and everything is going well for them, then they won't see any need to use these substances. But he ended up learning that this wasn't actually the case because Brandon had all of this, yet it still happened to him. In his words, you don't have to be in the hood to fall victim of these substances. Rickey admitted that he doesn't know how or why his son started battling an addiction like this, especially because his family members were sober. Knowing this makes Rickey feel even worse about the whole situation. Before Brandon passed away, he was a fun and funny person to be around. Rickey described him as always being a leader and a prankster too. It wasn't until Brandon was in the 8th grade that he started living with Rickey, and I guess you could say that that was how he developed his love for stand-up. He realized that performing was what he wanted to do at a very young age, and he decided to pursue comedy. Even though losing a child is something that no parent ever wants to witness, Rickey did admit that deep down he was prepared for this. But at the same time, when it happened, he also wasn't prepared because Brandon was his child. Either way, he's thankful to God for giving him the strength to be able to go through everything that he's experienced since Brandon's passing. Rickey said if there's anything that makes him cry, it's God's goodness to be able to get out of bed, do his morning show, and protect his kids, grandkids, and the rest of his family. Right now, Rickey hopes to be an example for those who listen to him. There are a lot of people who lost their children, and he feels like it's his responsibility to show them his faith and how he's coping with the loss. According to Rickey's producer Tanya, he's on a two-way street right now. On the one hand, he's very compassionate and embraces families who lost their children, and on the other hand, he's been embraced by others. Looking back at Brandon's life, it's easy to see how Rickey missed the signs. Growing up, Brandon was always a fun-loving child, and he and Rickey had an amazing relationship. That is until Rickey found some adult beverages cans hidden under his bed. According to Rickey, this changed their relationship. relationship. But the worst was yet to come for them. Brandon attended Alabama State University, and then he transferred to the University of Alabama before he decided to quit school altogether. In Rickey's words, this was when he knew that something was off. Still, he didn't have a ton of evidence for this. According to him, Brandon would get testy and disrespectful, but it never got to the point where he got into major trouble with anyone or the law. On the contrary, Brandon was a pretty hardworking guy. He worked for a landscaping company and had dreams of being a stand-up comedian just like Rickey. But over the time, Rickey started hearing certain things from others. Brandon began using prescription substances even though he would never admit it. He never said what he was using or who he was buying it from. It wasn't until he was ready to get help that he actually told Rickey the truth. But that didn't end up helping him much because it became a constant back and forth with him. He would get help and then he would relapse. It was a nasty cycle, and this affected Rickey so badly that he decided to take some space away from Brandon. Apparently, he didn't talk to Brandon for 2 years before his passing. Still, Brandon knew how much he loved him, and Rickey always told him just how proud he was of him. According to Rickey, everything he could have said, he did say before Brandon passed away, and now he's finding his own way to cope with losing Brandon. Some days are better than others for Rickey, but he keeps trying his best. Anyway, what do you guys think about all this? What do you think about how Rickey has been handling everything? It's all just so devastating. I can't imagine what the whole family must be going through. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below.